pleasure to be back here at the Hindu Temple of Minnesota in Minneapolis. It's such a unique temple, like none other in the US, and such a vibrant, wonderful, devotional community here. This time, over the 4 days, I'll have the opportunity to share with you some wisdom on becoming happier people in our lives. We will be talking about the art and science of happiness. Happiness is such a beautiful emotion. It moistens our heart with sweetness when it is present. With it, life seems fulfilling and work is satisfying. Ever so often, this sense of happiness leads to gratitude for all the blessings we have received. And it even enhances to the sentiment of euphoria or sheer joy. Without happiness, even the best luxuries in the world don't fill the emptiness in the heart. So, without happiness, we may keep running and accumulate so many things, but our heart will still remain empty. So happiness is like that one in front of all the zeros that adds value to everything else by its presence. But by its absence, it nullifies them all. And yet, like the proverbial rainbow in the horizon, we keep on running after happiness all our lives, and yet find it to be so elusive. Do you know when we started searching for happiness? The moment we were born. The first thing we did in coming in this world was to give a slogan, "Give me happiness." You may say, "Swamiji, what slogan? We could not say any words." It was not a slogan in words. It was the cry of our heart. The first thing we did upon birth was to cry. Every child cries. If the child doesn't cry, the mother will cry. Seems to be stillborn. But why did we cry? Because in the process of birth, we experienced pain. And by crying, we revealed our nature. I have not come in this world for pain. I have come for happiness. Give me happiness. And from that day till today, incessantly we are in search of that one thing. We all have different decisions on where it lies. Somebody believes that happiness is in a professionally successful career. Somebody else believes it is in fulfilling relationships. Somebody else feels it will come from fame. And a fourth person thinks it will come from spiritual attainment. But all of them are in search of the same thing, which is happiness. And 24 hours a day, we may do reverse things. But both these contradictory things are also in pursuit of happiness. Just like, for example, right now you are sitting and listening to some divine wisdom. Is it making you happy? Well, just to satisfy me, you can say, "Yes, Swamiji, it is making us happy." But supposing I keep speaking for 4 hours, I will find I am the only person remaining. Why are you getting up? Swamiji, you have become so boring. All the happiness is dried out. Now getting up is making me happy. One activity we were doing because it was giving us joy, and when the joy finished, we wish to do the reverse activity. That is how it is. 24 hours a day from birth till today. Did anybody teach us to seek happiness? Like we were trained by parents, teachers, gurus, my child, you should speak the truth. It should not happen that you start saying lies. My child, you should never steal other people's property. Did anybody train us? Beta, you should make happiness the goal of your life. It should never come about you start running for misery. This instruction was never given to us. Even more surprising, otherwise the smallest bit of knowledge did not come by itself. We did not even recognize our parents until we were trained. The adults pointed to a lady and said, my child, this is your mother. Say, Mummy. And we found everybody saying that. We said, all right, Mummy. Everything had to be learned. Where did this knowledge come from? That I must seek bliss. Otherwise, we are all different. Our facial appearances are different. Every time I open windows, that facial recognizer recognizes, welcome Swami Mukundanand. I have tried with glasses, without glasses, with tilak, without tilak. It still manages to recognize me, which means there's something different about the face in comparison to the 8.8 billion faces on this planet Earth. Nowadays, when you enter the United States, you don't need to fill forms. They say you stand in front of the camera, Swami Mukundanand, go. Of course, they take your biometrics because our biometrics, these little fingerprints, they are also different for 8 billion people. Our voices are different. That is why sometimes I get into trouble. Somebody calls me, Swamiji, you have come to USA? Yes. Who's speaking? Swamiji, you guess who's speaking? Hey, Baba, is this a video call? How will I guess? You have to recognize my voice. Now he knows that I listen to 50,000 voices every year. How should I recognize? But his expectation is that I should remember him by the harmonics in his voice. And it does happen. When your friend calls you, say, Arey bhai Ramesh! Because Ramesh's voice is different from Dinesh and Mahesh and Ganesh and Suresh. So our voices differ. Our bodily aromas are also different. A dog, it recognizes by our smell. You go to your friend's house and the dog is barking. It comes close. Oh, this smell, it's in my memory. He's a known person. So what I mean to say is that we are all different in every way. But in this one thing, the search of happiness, we are all the same. Aristotle, it seems, understood this. 2,500 years ago he wrote, we choose honor, wealth and prestige because they bring us happiness. But we choose happiness for itself and never with a view for anything further. Aristotle would have been astounded to know that 2,500 years before him, there was a philosopher in India called Vyas who had already written this in the Bhagavatam. Sarveshamapi bhutanam nipasvatmaiva vallabha itare patyavittadyas tadvallabha tayaivahi. He says, look, why did you get married? For your happiness. Why did you get a job? For the same reason. Why did you have children? For that one reason. And the search for happiness is not of one lifetime. Now let's get a little more philosophic. Because when it comes to happiness, the deepest analysis has been done in the Vedas worldwide. Since when have we been searching for happiness? From birth? No. The soul is unborn. It is eternal. It has no beginning. Just like God has no beginning. I once asked a little child, Beta, where is your father's home? He said, Swamiji, it's in front of my uncle's home. So I said, then where is your uncle's home? He said, Swamiji, it's in front of my father's home. Now I can't go and ask any GPS where is uncle's and father's home. So I said, where is your uncle and father's home? He said, Swamiji, they are in front of each other. Likewise, on Monday morning when you go to office and somebody says, what did you do in the weekend? And you tell them, I listened to Swamiji's lecture. And your friend says, what, if you have listened to the lecture, you tell me, since when have we souls existed? You can tell your friend, ever since God has existed. And if your friend asks, since when has God existed? Respond again, ever since we have existed. And if the third question is asked, since when have we and God existed? Then tell your friend, since when even time did not exist since then. Time gets created when the world gets created. Like you make a watch and put it in motion. So Aksharat Sanjayate Kalaha, God creates the world and time begins. So before creation there was no time. And the soul has been existing since then. So our search for happiness is an eternal one. But till today it has not been fulfilled. So we need over the next 4 days to decide why it has not been fulfilled and how to fulfill it. First of all, the benefits of becoming happier. Modern medical science has discovered that happier people have healthier hearts. Happier people are more resilient to stress. If there is a stressful situation, their personality will be strong enough not to crumble. And unhappy people will crumble easily. Happier people have better immunities. And this is important information in these pandemic times. When you take one vaccine and then the booster, but then the COVID virus keeps on mutating itself and then there's a new mutation. So of course I definitely recommend the vaccine, but you must try and boost your own immunity. Now studies have been done by scientists like Sorota, etc. They gave the pathogen to a person and they would measure the antibody response to the saliva after a little while. And for the same person it would be done week after week after week. And the person would also be given a questionnaire to check how happy that person is on the particular day. The discovery was that the day they are feeling happier, their antibody response is just much better. So one of the best ways to boost your immunity is to learn the art and science of happiness. And if you are interested, it will also increase your lifespan. As a study was done, with the sisters, the school sisters of Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a very famous Christian monastery for ladies. And these inmates of that monastery who were born before the year 1914, they used to keep a daily journal. And much later, recently, some social researchers got hold of those autobiographical journals. And based on them, they analyzed how happy that particular nun was and how long did she live. The results revealed that the happiest quartile of nuns, the happiest 25%, 90% of them crossed the age of 85. And the unhappiest quartile, only 34% of them crossed the age of 85. So if you are interested in living a longer life, again, this topic is extremely important for you. Some people say that if I become healthier, then I will become happier. But I am telling you the reverse. If you become happier, health will be yours. Likewise, people say, if I find success in my profession, then I will be a happier person. But I am telling you, you become a happier person and you will become better at your work. Now, with doctors, this study was done. You know, doctors, they have simulation experiments where some symptoms are given to them and they are asked to diagnose, and then some symptoms are added. So these are like kind of games played. Now in this, it is often observed an anchoring phenomenon where the initial diagnosis they made, they get stuck at it, even though reverse facts are added to the symptoms. So this creativity of the mind needs to be unleashed. And it was found that some doctors were made happier and their creativity had increased. The anchoring had decreased. And how were they made happier? You will not believe it. They were only given some chocolates, they were placed in front of them. That promised, oh, there's happiness here. Just unleash their creativity. So when you go to visit a doctor, they keep lollipops for you, right? But in my opinion, the lollipops should be kept for the doctors because they do better diagnosis. And there is also a message there for all medical institutions: the happier you make your employees, the better they will perform. In fact, corporations worldwide have realized this. And that is why Google instituted CHO, Chief Happiness Officer. And McDonald's followed suit, and so did Oracle, until it's become a common thing. But we are interested in finding happiness for ourselves. So in our search, very soon we realize that we can't have all the happiness that we want. There's always a trade-off. Which one should I choose? A low-value happiness, like watching the latest Bollywood movie, or a high-value happiness, like learning something from a TED Talk. So these choices are always there. And the reason we get into trouble is because of all these choices that life offers, and we end up choosing the wrong kinds of happiness. Unfortunately, the happiness that is really valuable is often upstream, and to get it requires a struggle. And the happiness that adds no value is downstream. It is readily available. This experiment was done with little children to test their willpower and self-control. It went down in history by the name toddler's torture. So toddlers around the age of 2.5 years old, a marshmallow would be put in front of the toddler. And the researcher would say, if you like it, you eat it. But if you don't eat it for 20 minutes, you will get 2 marshmallows. And the researcher, having said that, would leave the toddler and go out, see from the window what's going on. The toddler left with the possibility of pleasure from the marshmallow. For some of them, it was a no-brainer. If there is pleasure, then why think about it a second time? Just take it and put it in. The moment the researcher had left, they would eat the marshmallow. Other toddlers pondered over this dilemma for 2 minutes. I have never faced this kind of crisis before. Every time there was pleasure, I said, Mummy, Papa, I want this. And now there's pleasure, and then they say that don't take it. And pleasure will double. But then after 2 minutes, the intellect decided, why think so much? Just go ahead and eat it. Some toddlers kept thinking for full 7-8 minutes. Oh my God, should I do it? Should I not do it? And they tried to resist, and the way they tried to resist was also very interesting. They would divert their attention, don't look at it. But after 7-8 minutes, the mind and senses were tugging at the intellect. Come on, there is pleasure. And then they finally cave in. Some toddlers, they just braced themselves, and for 20 minutes they held on. And then they were rewarded with the 2 marshmallows. Now, Walter Mischel conducted this experiment in Stanford. And an interesting twist happened some few years later on when his daughters, who were part of the 500 children study, they also entered Stanford. So interest in the study was revived that where are these children now? They were traced out and followed for the next couple of decades and seen how they are performing in life. The results were extremely revealing. Those children who had displayed the maximum self-control. Self-control means ability to reject pleasure for something higher. Those children with maximum self-discipline had excelled in every sphere in life. They had better grades because even though the mind complained, they continued to study. They had better health because they were not pandering to the dictates of the tongue, but eating for the nutrition in the food and exercising even though the mind complained. They had better relationships because they were not succumbing to fits of anger. They had performed better in their work and were socially responsible individuals. On the other hand, the children with the least self-control had gotten into the maximum trouble in their lives. They could not control their health because the tongue was not under control. They were not able to dedicate themselves to meaningful work either in studies or in their profession because it was so boring. Their relationships were strained because they could not control their tongues. And the worst was that 12% of them had been to jail and out. So the message here is that a variety of happinesses are available in this world. And one of the important things is the wisdom to decide which one to chase and the ability to stick to it. The Vedas explain this famous theory. So many of you have heard the Kathopanishadic mantra. Shreyascha preyascha tayo avadanasya sadhu bhavati riyarthethat yav preyo pranite. This mantra from the Vedas say that there are 2 kinds of happiness. One is Shreya and the other is prayer. Prayer happiness is that which is so sweet in the present. When you take that third scoop of pistachio ice cream, it is so delightful. But later on it turns into poison when you realize your cholesterol is out of control and so is the sugar. So that happiness which is sweet like nectar in the present but bitter like poison later on is prayer happiness. And that happiness which is bitter like poison in the here and now but later on turns into sweet nectar is Shreya happiness. So if you have to go and exercise in the gym or do yoga, the mind complains, oh my God, this is like poison. But when you receive the health benefits, you say, wow, the time invested was like sheer nectar. Now every child struggles with this. Sukharthi tyajate vidya, vidyarthi tyajate sukham. Sukharthina kuto vidyarthina sukham. The sukh is in the video games and the benefit is in the studies. So the mother says, my child study. The child says, no, I want to play video games. The mother says, what will you do when you grow up? The child says, I will not grow up. The mother says, look, the advice of the elders, that benefit you will realize later on, not just now. There's a saying in Hindi, आमले का खाया और बड़ों का कहा बाद में पता चलता है. The amla is the Indian gooseberry. It has got the vitamin C of 10 oranges. One little amla, full of antioxidants, is the best thing you can do to boost your immunity, one amla a day. And your chances of catching a cold or a virus will decrease 95%. But there's a catch. That amla is bitter. The child doesn't want to eat. When I was a little child, I still remember wondering. When my mother would say this good for health, this bad for health, I used to wonder, why is it that everything that is tasty is bad for health? And everything that is good for health is not tasty. Mark Twain expressed this when he said, if you want to be healthy, you have to eat the things you would rather not, and do the things you would prefer not to do. And that's the kind of riddle which God has created in this world. So there is Shreya happiness and there is prayer happiness. Which one are you going to choose? Invariably, that prayer happiness is so easy. It is all readily available. And the Shreya happiness is the one that you need to work for. The Greeks, they also had their terms for this. They called it hedonia and eudaimonia. So what is hedonic happiness? You know, the eat, drink and be merry philosophy. Hedonic happiness is the sensual delights, the low value entertainment, which is so enjoyable in the here and now, but doesn't help in developing your character or growing to become a better person. So the problem is that we keep on chasing hedonic happiness. And it is like running on a treadmill. So when you are on a treadmill, you keep on running for 15 minutes. And at the end of it, where are you? Where you were 15 minutes ago. You have run so much, but you are still in the same place. So also is this hedonic happiness, When we were little children, we got this thrill from the new bicycle that our parents gifted us on our birthday. Ha! We felt we were on top of the world, but slowly that thrill died out. And then we needed the scooter. And supposing it finally came, it also gave us a thrill for a little while. And later on, you had a job and you got your first car. It may have been just a Maruti, the Indian Maruti, which still gave you a thrill until it died out. And later on, the same Maruti gives no thrill. Then later on, you needed a Honda, and ultimately, even a Mercedes provides no thrill. So for a little while, you get the happiness and it dies out. That is why the Vedas say that chasing hedonic happiness is like running after a mirage. You always think there must be happiness there. And when you reach there, you get it for a moment, then you say, no, there must be happiness there. And then you reach there, there must be happiness there. Like 20 years ago, people in India thought that those in America must be truly happy. If you get a visa for America, it's like getting a visa for Golok. The whole of the developing world thinks that. There used to be this huge line in front of the American embassy. People would come and sleep there at night. So when I first came to America, I asked the Indians out here, that the Indians out there think you people must be so happy. Are you really happy? No, Swamiji, what really happy? The standard of living has changed, but the quality of life remains the same. There's a big difference between the two. The standard of living and the quality of life. One college professor, he was the favorite of his students. Those students had graduated 10 years ago, and they were having an alumni meet where 20 of them, they started discussing about their favorite professor. So they said, let's go and meet him. They requested, he agreed. And they came to meet him at the appointed time. He had placed 40 cups of coffee. All the cups were different, but they all had the same coffee. He said, go grab your coffee cup and come. I'll speak to all of you about the wisdom of life. So they all brought a coffee cup, and then he said, just observe. Each of you grabbed the most ornate cup there was. Some were just mud cups, like the one you get on railway stations in India. Some were a little normal, some more fancy, some really ornate. So he said, all of you grab the most ornate cup. Even the coffee inside was just the same. It may have given you more pleasure to drink it from the mud cup. But you went for the externals. Now remember, that is exactly how life is. You have the externals, the car that you drive, whether it's a limousine, or it's a Honda or a Toyota, the size of the house that you live in. This is the standard of your living. It's like the coffee cup. And inside it is the coffee itself, the quality of your life. So just because the standard of living has increased doesn't mean that your happiness is also increased. We need to keep an eye on that happiness. So when I asked Indians in USA that are you happier than Indians in India, they said, no, not really, Swamiji, it's the same. But then I saw that in America also the illusion continues. Because I was giving a lecture in Tampa, Florida, and on the last day, one Western lady asked me, that Swamiji, where are you going from here? So I said, I am going to New York. She said, New York? She became all goggle-eyed. You're going to the land of Broadway and Times Square, oh, the place of happiness. Okay, so in America, people think there must be happiness in New York, but definitely not in Minneapolis. So when I went to New York, I asked them that this is what the rest of America thinks of you, but are you all happy? See, you don't need to ask the New Yorker, are they happy? Their face tells it all that they are not happy. When you have to travel in subways and you can't find a parking spot in Manhattan for 2 hours, all the happiness gets squeezed out in any case. So everybody is thinking, when I get into that category, I will be happy. And the Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmanand Valli says, look, all these categories are just the same. The happiness that you are getting from the Honda is the same as the happiness somebody else is getting from the Mercedes, the same as the happiness somebody is getting from the Lamborghini. It looks different, but the experience is actually the same. So, this is the hedonic treadmill which makes us chase a mirage. And that mirage is so elusive. One king, he was walking on the terrace of his palace and he was wondering about all the problems in his kingdom. There's a rebellion out there, disobedience by the prince, friction with the queen. And suddenly sounds of mirth and laughter came to him from a poor family's hut by the side of his palace. He was amazed. This family can hardly make 2 ends meet and they are so happy. So he called his minister, Mantri, what is the secret of this family's happiness? The minister said, O king, if you wish to know such an important piece of wisdom, it will come at a price. Are you willing to pay? Yes, definitely. 99 gold coins. The king said, it's a small price. So he called his servants, bring 99 gold coins. They were brought. The minister wrapped them up in a cloth, made a bundle, and threw them in front of that poor family's hut. It was 9 p.m. In the morning, when that family woke up, they opened their door. They found a bundle in front of their house. First, they were apprehensive. What is this? Is it, the neighbor trying to do some black magic? Or is it a terrorist attack? If you see something, say something. Finally, they picked up the courage to open the bundle and they discovered the yellow metal. Now they were thrilled. Wow, yippee! We had seen gold earlier on, but it was through the window panes of jewelry shops, and today we are the proud owners of gold. When God gives, He really gives. How much has He given to us? Start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 97, 98, 99. He said, what kind of number is 99? If God had to give, He should have given us straight 100. Why 99? Like Sachin Tendulkar, where he had scored 99 hundreds. And all of India was waiting for him to score his 100. And for a year he kept prolonging it. He used to get out in his 90s and everybody in India would mourn, why did he not complete his century? That was the kind of discontent of this family. Now earlier they had been happy and now they were unhappy. With 99 gold coins, they said, never mind, God gave us 99, we'll earn the 100th one ourselves. So they hit upon a plan, every day we will earn this much more and we will save this much more, and in so many months we'll have the 100th gold coin. Now the day that saving would not happen, a fight would break at home. The wife would tell the husband, you did not earn enough. You should have spoken pleasantly to that customer who came to your thela. And the husband said, you spent too much. Why did you put ghee in the dal? slowly the happiness of the family disappeared. 1 month later, the king was again walking on his terrace, and from the same hut, sounds of quarreling were coming. The king was astonished. Where did their happiness go? He called the minister and said, Mantri, what happened to this family? Why are they so unhappy? The minister said, O king, this is called 99 ka chakkar. The vicious trap of 99. This family is caught in that trap. It is thinking what we have is not enough to be happy, because we only have 99. If we can have 100, then we will be happy. Earlier on, they were happy in the moment. But think about it, all of us are in the same trap. You have got 2 sets of clothes to wear, 2 rotis to eat. But why is all this unhappiness? The person in the condominium thinks that I need a townhouse, the person in the townhouse thinks I need the bungalow, the person in the bungalow needs I need a 5-bedroom bungalow. It's going on and on and on. We are thinking if I reach there, I will be happy. But the goal is in the future. And life is passing by in the present in unhappiness. And what is the guarantee when you reach the goal, you will be happy? See, Ruskin Bond, the famous Indian English writer, he said there are 2 disappointments in life. The first is when you desire something and don't get it. And the second is when you desire something and you get it. So this is hedonic happiness which thrills but never fulfills. And there's another kind of happiness which will really fulfill. That's the one we need to learn. Eudaimonic happiness. Umapati Mahadev Ki! We discussed hedonic happiness. The hedonic treadmill which thrills but never fulfills. Now the other kind of happiness which provides lasting fulfillment. This is the eudaimonic happiness. This may require austerities. It may require facing hardships and difficulties. But at the end of it, it gives you a fulfillment. Ah, that was so nice. Well, that inner fulfillment comes when you exert yourself. Like, for example, when you have to work hard to prepare a solid presentation to your company board, it requires austerities and hardships. But finally, when you do the best you could, it gives you a sense of fulfillment. When you decide you will follow a particular diet, it requires sacrificing a variety of pleasures. But when you conquer your lower nature, it just makes you feel better. That is the eudaimonic happiness. This eudaimonic happiness comes from finding a higher purpose in your life. How? Let me give you an example. When I was in Bhubaneswar, one retired chief engineer of Odisha state, he came to me. He was 75 years old. And he said, Swamiji, I am in deep depression since last couple of months. And I said, what happened? He said, my wife of 50 years has passed away. And actually I knew her since 55 years when we were in college. And now her going away has left such a big void in my life which I am not able to fulfill. So you are a Swamiji. You give me some wisdom on how to handle this situation. I thought, what should I tell him? Supposing I tell him it was your destiny. then he'll say my destiny was bad, he'll go into further depression. If I tell him it was the will of God, he'll say, then why did God do such a bad thing? He'll start fighting with God. So I said, you loved your wife? Arey Swamiji, so much. Did your wife love you as much? Actually, she loved me even more. So I said, tell me one thing. Suppose, now she has left first. Suppose you had left first. Would she be able to bear that separation? Arey Swamiji, it would be impossible for her. She would have totally collapsed. I said, look, by allowing her to leave first, you have saved your beloved from so much of pain, which she would have faced if she had been living until your death and beyond. So all of a sudden his expression on his face changed. It was like a light had gotten lit. He discovered there was meaning in that pain. Earlier on it was just pain. And now he's finding this pain is serving a purpose. It has saved his beloved wife from a whole lot of pain. So he just stood up. I said, listen little more. No, Swamiji, I don't need to listen anything further. I've got my answer. He just went off. Why? He found the higher purpose in his circumstances. That is exactly how it is. We human beings, when we find the higher purpose, we can undertake as many austerities. It becomes thrilling. It becomes fulfilling. People are willing to give up their lives for the cause that they truly believe in. That is why Martin Luther King Jr., he said something very interesting. He was the leader of the civil rights movement in the 1960s. He said, if you have not found a cause in your life that you are willing to die for, your life is not worth living. Life becomes worth living when you discover a cause for which you are willing to lay down your life. So, that kind of happiness is not free from difficulties. It is not like going to an entertainment park. It is not low value pleasure. It is high value pleasure. But it truly fulfills you. So where does that happiness come? From trying to do the best that you can do for what you believe in. That gives you happiness. Now find a purpose in your life. And Friedrich Nietzsche, German philosopher, he said a person who has a strong enough why can tolerate any what. Somebody who has got a strong enough why, now Dr. Das will be annoyed if I just mention it, but nevertheless I'll go ahead and mention it. He is running a huge hospital in Bhubaneswar, and when he goes to India, without any jet lag, he works 14 hours a day. And youngsters like you and me can't do that. So he's working 14 hours a day. He came back from India yesterday and there is no sign of any jet lag. He's gone for 5 functions already. That ability comes from a strong why in your life. Now people ask me that how do I find a strong sense of purpose? So this lecture will be incomplete if I don't give you a way to find your sense of purpose. And for that I would like to relate the story of Laba Bhagavan Khare. So Laba Bhagavan Khare was a 62-year-old lady living in Wardha district of the Vidarbha region of Maharashtra. It's a very dry, arid land, cotton belt. And she and her husband were farm laborers. Now the poorest people in India are the farm laborers who work on daily wages in the farms. So they had raised their 3 daughters who had grown up and gotten married and gone away. But all their savings had gotten exhausted, and her husband was now 65 and she was 62. But they were still happy with the life they were leading because they were getting enough to live by. Until one day the husband fell sick. And she tried all the herbal cures she could, but it was not improving. And she went and showed the doctor, and he, after a few tests, decided that this was a serious matter and the treatment would need to be done in bigger hospital, the district hospital in Baramati. So she did not have money. She went and borrowed something from some people, begged a little from the relatives, and then she and her husband caught the bus to travel from the village to the district place. And there they reached this hospital. She was overwhelmed by what she saw. People all with proper dresses and attires, blue collar coats, white collar, etc. were moving here and there in busy manner, but she braved herself to get her husband registered as a patient and then sat in front of the doctor's chamber. When her turn came, the doctor looked at the husband, did an initial examination, and then wrote a battery of tests that get these tests and come. And with that, she and her husband went out. And she told her husband, we've already exhausted our money in the registration fees. Now what will we do? Let's go back. We don't have money for the tests. They went out of the hospital. I'm telling you a real life story. It is there on the internet as well. So when outside these Indian hospitals, you have these simple eateries for patients and their relatives and friends. So she told her husband, let's eat some little thing before we get onto the bus. And she was at this vendor who was selling samosas. And she purchased some samosas. He served it to them in a newspaper. And the headline in the newspaper caught her attention. It said, Baramati Marathon prize money available. And she asked the shopkeeper, what is this prize money for? He said, there is going to be a race. And the winner will win the prize. So she said, I really need the money. So she arrived for the marathon, where all were youngsters. And they were all wearing sports attires, running kits, very properly dressed for that. And she, an old Maharashtrian lady, they tie the sari from behind like this. And she had slippers and she insisted that she will participate. The organizers kept on resisting. How can you participate, Mataji? And she kept on insisting. And after 1 hour, they finally said, all right, there was one category for people who were above 40. So they allowed her in that category. And when the race began, she was running, and after a few yards, one of the slippers broke. So she left the second slipper behind, and now she was running barefoot. But the interesting thing is that she was ahead of the whole field in her category. It was a smaller distance for them, and she happened to win the race. So all the journalists, all the organizers were shocked. How did you win it? She said, I needed the money for my husband. So she got her husband treated, and then came back next year and won it again, and then came back next year and won it again. For 3 years she won it. And when I heard this story, I was so astonished. I said, what was the why in the what that she did? It was love. It was her love for her husband that made her run like that. Likewise, if you want to find the why in your life, try and develop love for your Supreme Beloved, for God. When you make that the motivation in your life, you will find an inexhaustible supply, reservoir of inspiration from within. There is one inspiration that requires rewards from the outside. If you give me this salary, that's what I'll do. If you give me that salary, I'll do much more. These are external rewards. Some people are motivated when they are praised. But that key to their motivation is outside, because when they are not praised, then they are demotivated. So by the external key, they can be motivated or demotivated. And others find the inner source of motivation. And once you are motivated from within, then nothing can change that, because it's all available to you. And that inner motivation doesn't require anything from the outside. It requires finding a big why within yourself. And what I'm telling you is that you have an eternal relationship with God. You are a tiny part of God. If you can find that love for your Creator, then the desire to serve your Creator will be the biggest inspiration. And that happiness will be the sweetest in this world. So the first thing we've understood about eudaimonic happiness is that you try and do the best that you can do. Now when you try and do good, you realize what is the biggest impediment in this doing good. We always blame other things. I am not able to do good because I did not get support, because the environment was not conducive, because government policies were wrong. But you ask any CEO of any company, they'll say the biggest impediment is myself. I need to become a better person. When I become a better person, I will be able to do better things. It is so simple. It's like the Japanese bonsai art. You know, the Japanese, they grow trees that are so small. So you will have a redwood California that is 1.5 feet tall. Why? They limit the roots of the tree. They grow it in a bowl. And there is no scope for the roots to increase. So when the roots are small, the tree is also stunted. Likewise, if you want to rise in your life, the way to do it is to improve yourself from within, which means to try and become the best person that you can become. So that is why in JK Yog we have made a slogan. You may have noted it somewhere. The JK Yog slogan: you do good and you be good. That is the way to feel good. When you are striving to be the best person that you can be, and when you are striving to do the best that you can do, that is the sure shot way to feel the best that you can feel. Now you may say, I cannot be happy, Swamiji, because I've got this little salary of $2,500 a month and I can't even make this. I'll tell you somebody who was happy without anything. This lady was Sindhutai Sapkal. Sindhutai Sarkar was also born in a rural area in Maharashtra. And when she was 12 years old, she was, as a 6-year-old, her family was poor, she used to take the buffaloes of her father to graze in the fields. And when these buffaloes would immerse themselves in a lake, she would go to the school. The teacher would beat her up because she came late. And when she returned, the neighbors would beat her because the buffaloes had entered their fields. That was her life. And when she became a 12-year-old, she was married off to a person who was twice her age. From that husband, she had 3 children. And when the 4th child was in her womb, by then she had become a little bit of an activist. There was a cow dung mafia that was exploiting women. It would force them to get the cow dung at very cheap rates and sell it off. So she went and complained to the district collector, the government administrator of the district. And the head bandit of that mafia got annoyed and played a plot upon her and went and told her husband that, unknown to you, your wife has a secret affair with me, and the child in her womb is not yours, it is mine. The gullible husband believed that bandit, and after his departure started kicking her in the womb with the idea of aborting the baby. This is also a true life story. And finally, when she fainted unconscious, he caught her and took her to the cow shed, thinking that she will be trampled and nobody will know the cause of death. But destiny had something else in mind, and a big cow stood over her in protection. And at night, she gave birth to a baby. There was no midwife. She took a stone to cut the umbilical cord. And then she took her baby and walked home. Her parents' home, they refused to take her. Now she was homeless. So to prevent herself from being abused, she started living in the cremation ground. There, nobody would come at night. And if she would find some grain, she would cook it on the funeral pyres. Many times she tried to commit suicide, thought of committing suicide. On one such occasion, she went and lay down on a railway track along with her baby. Then all of a sudden she heard a moan, and she found an old man groaning. So she went and fed him and gave him some water. And in that she found satisfaction. And she said to herself that, can I find purpose in my life by serving others? But then she said, I have got nothing, how can I serve? And she looked up. The tree under which she was sitting, its branch was half broken and hanging, but giving her shade. So she decided that if this branch which is half broken can serve me, I can also do something. So she went to the railway station and got hold of a couple of orphans and started taking care of them by begging. Slowly, the number of orphans increased to 15. And this got the attention of some well-minded people who arranged a shelter for her. She became to be known as the mother of the orphans. Now those orphans kept growing in size until they reached 1,000. Her own child she gave away to an orphanage so that she would not be partial towards her child. And as these orphans kept growing, some of them became engineers and some became doctors and even PhDs. Now this caught the attention worldwide. By the end of her life, she had raised 3,000 orphans and got 350 awards. JK Yog invited her every year we give awards to women for international awards for accomplishment. And we invited her during the COVID time online to give her the award. In fact, she also received the Padma Shri award a few months before that. And she gave us a lecture online full of happiness. And then, just a few months after that, she passed away. Now, here was a lady who had nothing and had still found happiness. And the reverse of that, people who have everything and still they have not found happiness. So happiness doesn't come by increasing the standard of your living. That is a misnomer. Happiness comes by improving the quality of your life. If you want to know the secret of happiness, just remember this formula. Try to be the best that you can be. Try to do the best that you can do. So when you be good and do good, that is the way to feel good. But this is only a small wisdom that I have given you. Tomorrow we will discuss how to find happiness from positive reframing when you face negative situations. How to be happy despite that. Then we will find happiness in relationships. And we will also find happiness at the workplace. So we want to cover this journey of happiness, and at the end of it, we also want the happiness of God. So every day will add significant wisdom and value. My humble request will be not to miss it. So try and attend every day of this 4-day series. Bolie Shri Radha Krishna Bhagwan ki